Hello world, this is Craig. So I need another card cage for that single board computer, that 8010B that we just brought up. Well, I don't need a card cage. I have half a dozen of them already, but I want another card cage just for that one. So I thought I'd show you what I do when I am getting a new card cage and the power supply for it and so forth. So this card cage is the one that I use on my bench day to day. And one of the nice things about this is when I bought it, somebody had already done this. They cut out the top. These used to have webs. These used to have round corners in it for support. But they cut the top out so that you can have full access, nearly full access, to the top card. So this is really nice for diagnostics because you can put clips in most places and actually get access to the top card without using an extender card. So this is a 6 or 7 card backplane, and you can see it has the ability for active termination on it, but it's just got passive termination on it right now. And I did modify this a bit. On the fingers I put terminals so I can connect my logic probe to it, and I installed a reset switch on this. These are made by many manufacturers, and you can get online and buy various card cages. This one I actually bought the card cage, and it had 2 or 3 Multibus cards in it that came with it. I didn't really want, but have a surplus of Multibus cards. Okay, so this is my day-to-day card cage. Let me move that out of the way and look at some of my others. This is an Intel expansion card cage, and one of the things you'll notice on a lot of these card cages is they have fingers along the edge here because these are meant to be expansion card cages, and that there's another card cage above this that would have a socket that this would go in. So this would pop up into the bottom of the card cage above it. The card cage above it would have, instead of having fingers on one end, it would have a socket down on this end, and so they would just so you could extend the card cage. This one also, it's got some passive termination here, has some resistor packs for termination, and they're fairly standard. Let me pull out this card. This is an 8010A, so this is the version before the 8010B. So we talked about the local bus extension. You can see that this doesn't have anything for the local bus extension, and that's where you would put this little connector that would jumper all of the fingers from one to the next if you're using the local bus extension. So let's look at the back of these card cages. They're, again, fairly standard even on the back. Okay, now if you remember, I mentioned that Multibus could have multiple masters, and those masters have to have a priority. And you'll see on card cages where there's these little set of jumpers along this edge. And that's if you want to implement the master-slave scheme, or the multiple master scheme, in the Multibus. So you will need to jumper these according to what kind of a scheme you want to use. And the most common, I think, is the serial scheme, where each card will have an input and an output, and if it's the master, it'll take control of the bus and tell everybody downstream by controlling the output that it's going to be the master and take control of the bus. Then the next one downstream, or if the top one's not the master, the next one downstream will then be able to claim itself to be master over all the ones further down. Now the thing with that is it's a serial stream, and it's hardwired. It's a serial sequence, and it's hardwired. So depending on where you are in the bus depends on your priority in the master and slave. Okay, the other thing is that they all have this very common connector, and this is a Molex 0.156 inch connector. But the nice thing is these connectors happen to fit the same connector that's on the regular AT or PC power supply. Here's a card cage from a third manufacturer, and this one's nice. It's got a little place for a fan, but you can see the back of it is pretty much the same. Has the same power connector and the same connectors for the master-slave jumpers. When I need a new card cage, this is the kind of power supply I get for it. Now this is a AT power supply, and remember, we need either a PC or the XT or AT power supply, not the ATX power supply, and the reason being that we've got to have the -5 volts. We have to have the -5 volts for the 8080, and even if we're using a card that has the 8085, a lot of the memory chips will require the -5 volts. So we get one of these power supplies. The connectors are going to be just what we need, and it gives us the -5 volts. So all we have to do is swap around the pins in the connector. Remember, on the PC, the connectors go like this. This is pin 1. It's just a sense. The reds are 5 volts. The blacks are grounds. The yellow and blue are plus or minus 12, and the white over here is our -5. So all we have to do is reorder these so it matches the order on the card cage. And I don't have the proper pin removal tool, but a paperclip works just fine. So we're going to plug this into the card cage, just like that, but we've got to have our in the right order. So what we're looking for in this one is common. So we know this next one is incorrect, so we're going to take that one out. That needs to be a 5 volt. Sticking this in the little hole, it catches the barb, usually, and lets us pull that out. So there's the minus, or the 5 volts. This is the plus and minus 12. Remember, we want common, 5 volt, 5 volt. So let's take out the next one. Okay, this one happens to be in the right spot. Common, 5 volt, plus 12, minus 5. Let me get my other one here. Let me get another one of the 5 volts from this one. Let me get the minus 5 from this one. Okay, so we've got our common 5 volt, plus 12. Yellow is plus 12, and then minus 5, and then we want to have another ground here. We're going to run. Oh, we're going to have another ground. Okay. Okay, so that's that one. That'll go right there. Okay, and this one over here. Okay, so this one over here, we have ground, and then 5 volt, 5 volt. So I got to move the he's going to go over there. And then the minus 12 is the blue. And I don't have the minus 10 on this, and this one isn't used. Okay, so let's power this guy up and check our voltages. Now we'll use these for disk drives if we decide to put disk drives in this system. Okay, so there's our 5 volts on both of those, and then we want to have plus 12. We have minus 5, and we have ground again. Good. Over here we've got common 5 volts, minus 12. We don't have minus 10 on this, and then common. Okay, great. So let's turn this off and we have some amount of confidence to slide our board in, power it up. Okay, well that's all I really had to say about card cages. If you can get one online for 50 bucks or 100 bucks, it's well worth it. And then get yourself a XT power supply to power this to get the -5 volts. And if you have a card that has to have the -10 volts, you can put a regulator in and drop that off of the -12. But the -10 volts isn't all that common. Okay, well that's it on card cages for Multibus. Thanks for watching. Bye.